Welcome back. Well, did you get your planner set up? Did you get all that information in there? Don't tell anybody, but if you come to the 3-day class, we have the same homework, and people say it takes hours. Just what you want to do is get yourself organized. Now, you might not have had some of the information that you needed. If you haven't been tracking in the past, you don't have that log sheet, you might not have known how many presentations you've been given accurately. You might not even know how many customers you talked to, and some of you may not even know how many cars you sold. You do know you got a paycheck. We want to start keeping up with this stuff in real life. This is how you're going to improve your sales, going to improve your income. This is how you're going to double your income in just a short time. The next thing we want to talk about is goal setting. And we're taking these step by step. The things you have to do, those 4 secrets to success. You got to develop your skills, your habits, your attitudes, your choice of customers. Then we get you organized so that we know exactly what you're doing. And now we're going to talk about how to set goals. But we couldn't talk about how to set goals if you didn't have the information, because having the information is the first step in goal setting. So we're leading up to this step by step. Turn over to page 41 in your planner. Not in your planner, in your workbook. You got too many books there in front of you. Page 41 in your workbook. And let's talk about setting goals. Now, I was listening to a tape set, and I'm not exactly sure who the speaker was, but he was talking to a professional bowler, and he was talking to a professional basketball player, and he asked the professional basketball player, and I don't know anything about sports, and in a couple minutes you'll realize that, but he asked the basketball player, he said, how did you get so good? He was trying to determine how people go from being little kids to basketball players very successful. And the basketball player said, I've always been good. He said, well, that's a healthy ego, but in real life, how did you get good? He said, no, seriously. He said, I've always done well. He said, I don't ever remember missing the basket. Now, I think it was Dennis Waitley was holding this interview, and he said, well, what do you mean you don't remember missing the basket? When did you start playing basketball? He said, oh, I know what you're thinking. He said, I was 4 or 5 years old when I started. He said, my dad saw that I had an interest in basketball, and he knew that if he worked with me and got me more successful step by step, I'd continue. And he saw a future with me in basketball, so he helped me out. He said he didn't do like most people do. He didn't hand me a big basketball and a real tall basket and say, here, son, show me what you can do. What he did instead was made sure that I was successful step by step. So he did it a little differently. He said, when I was 4 or 5 years old, my dad gave me a little ball and he set a trash can next to me. He wanted me to be successful step by step. So he said, here, son, throw the ball in the trash can. He said, I threw it in the trash can. Being a little kid, I laughed, and he patted me on the back. He understood the value of positive reinforcement. And he said, and he pulled it out of the basket and trash can. He said, here, try it again. And I threw it in there again. He patted me on the back. Positive reinforcement. I was having fun. He said, about time I got bored because it now became so easy I almost couldn't miss. He said, here, let's make it a little tougher. Set the trash can up on a phone book or on the coffee table. And he said, now try it. So I had to reach up and drop the ball in the basket. And then the basket kept getting higher and the ball kept getting bigger. And it was literally years before I ever had a real ball, real basket, trying to shoot hoops out here. He said, but when I did, I never missed. Now, most of us in the car business don't get that kind of training, that kind of goal setting, step by step and baby steps. It's, you're hired, show me what you can do. What's your goal for the month? And then we go after that on a downward trend. We're downhill with goal setting. We're taught how to do the wrong things with goal setting. We want to learn the baby step method. Like the basketball player, the bowler gave almost the exact same story. They both learned in small increments how to get better and better and better. And that's exactly what we want to talk to you about. Now, my goal with this goal setting section, I can't teach you everything you need to know about goal setting in 30 minutes. I can cover an awful lot about goal setting. I can condense a lot of the things that I learned into a real short time. I can give you some of the most important things that I've personally learned about goal setting. And we can get this down to where you can get a grip on your career with the information we're going to cover. Need you to take notes and listen. First of all, there on page 41, first question says, what's a goal? What's a goal? You guys tell me. What is a goal? I heard somebody say it's something you want or an objective, something you don't have. What else? Target. I always liken goal setting to targets. I used to be, when I grew up on a farm, I think I had my first .22 rifle when I was 7 years old. And that's dangerous, but I got good at shooting. I went out in the pasture and started shooting things. Then I realized I wasn't hitting anything, so I started picking out closer targets. And then I got good at hitting a close target, and then I'd move the target further away and further away. And as long as I had a target, I got real good at shooting. Most of us go through life without having a clear target. We just go out here and shoot. We want to have a good career. We have great intentions. We work long. We work hard. We just don't get very far. And there's some reasons that we don't. We need to clearly identify what a goal is. it varies with people. A target, a guy in class one time said, I heard a goal defined as a dream with a deadline. It's hard to define a goal in a single sentence because there's some rules that go with goal setting. And it's the rules that keep most people from becoming goal setters. I just said a second ago, too, that most people have good intentions, work long, work hard. I don't know if you read USA Today. In USA Today, in that bottom left corner of the front page, there's always that little bit of trivia question down there. One day in USA Today not long ago, the question in there was, how much does the average 55-year-old man have in his lifetime savings account? Now, we're talking about men. It says, how much money has the average 55-year-old got in his lifetime savings account? What do you figure? Guy's worked long, he's worked hard, has good intentions. What do you figure they got in the bank? Heard somebody say 10,000, 5,000, 50,000. If we hadn't led into talking about goal setting, I would have probably figured 100,000, 200,000. I'd figure when you get 55, surely you got some money in the bank. USA Today said that the average 55-year-old person has $2,300 in their lifetime savings account. Good intentions? Absolutely. Worked long and hard? Absolutely. Problem is, they got little money instead of that big money they'd like to have. They didn't plan well enough. They didn't have good, clear goals. Good intentions don't get you where you'd like to be. That's going to require goals. Number 2, who sets goals? Who sets goals? The most successful people or the least successful people? I think that's common sense. The most successful people. Number 3, what percent of the people set goals? And to look at this, let's say we were in a room with 100 people. 100 people standing around us. What percent of the people set goals? Number A there. First question is, what percent have no goals at all? Of the 100, how many have no goals at all? 60, 70, 80? It's actually a little higher. It's 87%. 87% no goals. None. Not any. Nada. Not even a little bit. Now, 13% have goals. B. 13% sort of have goals. Actually, the problem is they don't do it right. 10% of the 13% do it wrong. They leave out the rules. And that leaves us with just 3% of the people across the country. Take any room of 100 people, 3% have goals. The other 97%, I don't doubt that they have good intentions. They just don't have good, clear goals. Now, what happens to the goal setters? Well, I was reading a book or listening to a tape, and Harvard Business School did a study about goal setters. Number D down here. Harvard found out that the 3% who set goals, when you talk about money, the 3% who set goals earn 10 times as much money as non-goal setters. They make 10 times as much money as the people who don't set goals. And I don't know about you, I kind of look at everything as probabilities. If you walked into a table and walked into a casino in Vegas and walked up to a table and it says, if you play this table, you'll win 10 times as much money as if you play that one. Which table would you play? Hopefully you'd play the table where your best odds were. Purdue did a study, and they found the same thing. Only 3% of the people set goals, but they also found out that the 3% who set goals have more money than the 97% combined. These 3 people have more money than all of these people put together. That means walk into a crowded room, 3 people got all the money. Number 4, why are goals so important? I guess I could have changed the question. Do you want to guarantee a successful career in sales, or do you want to work long and hard and see what happens? Why are goals important? They give you the direction. What else? They let you know where you're headed. They give you a method of tracking. And if I know where I want to be, I can look to see where I am and see if I'm on the right track or not. If I'm just saying I want to be more successful, that's too vague a goal. I don't have a way of gauging myself. So they give you the good, clear guidance that you need. Number 5, what areas should you focus on with goals? Well, it says professional, physical, family, spiritual, financial, and intellectual. Most of those things are up to you. The only thing we're going to talk about in here today are professional goals. We're going to talk about sales goals in the car business. Some examples of professional goals that you might pick out of the air on page 42. And remember, we've already tracked our progress, so we know exactly where we are. We can set some goals that have some meat in them now. And again, we want to learn to take baby steps. A lot of 10-car people wish they could sell 30 cars. The problem is, psychologists tell us that we can't visualize ourselves doing that much. In fact, they did a survey, and they asked the average person, they were talking about money, they said, how much more money would you like to make? They did one of these phone surveys, whatever it was. They asked a bunch of people that question, how much more money do you think the average person would like to make? Not dollars and cents, but how about percentage? Would they like to double their income, triple their income, quadruple their income, make another 5%, 50%? What in there? I heard somebody say 20%. That's close. It's a little high. It's only about 16%. People would be happy if they could make 16% more than they're making. Now, there was a little word in that survey question. They said realistically. Realistically, how much more money would you like to earn? That's where the 16% came in. That means a $1,000 person would be happy if they could make $1,160. $2,000 person would be happy if they could make $2,320. And that starts to get us into the problem of us going from 10 cars to 30 cars. Too many of us are trying to pull that off in a 20-day, 30-day, 60-day period. It's kind of difficult. According to statistics, the 10-car person can't see 30 cars. Oh, we can talk about it. We can say, oh, sure, I could if I wanted to. But in real life, if we said in real life, you're selling 10 cars, how many more cars could you honestly see yourself selling? I mean, if you applied yourself. What'd you come up with on that sheet before? 12, maybe 13? If you can see 12 or 13, let's don't worry about getting you to 30. Let's get you to 12 to 13. Same thing if you're making $30,000 a year. Let's don't worry about getting you to 100. 100's a lot better, and that's a lot of money, but first we got to get you to 35. You can see 35. That's an extra car a month. That's all an extra $1,000, an extra $6,000 a year is basically another car, maybe 2 cars a month. You can see doing that. Get you from 12, get you up in that 12, 13 range. Now, if you moved your current average from 10 to 12, you've been there for 90 days, you're comfortable at it. If I ask a 12-car person, one of you guys sells 12 cars? In real life, how many cars could you see yourself selling if you applied yourself? What, 15, 16? See, your vision improves as you get better. So now we got to figure out how to get you to 15. We figured out how to get you from 10 to 12. Now we got to get you from 12 to 15. Once you get to 15, then we got to get you to 20. Then we got to get you to 25, and then we can get you to 30. Don't worry about going from 10 to 30. Worry about going from 10 to 12. And let's take that first step. These would be called baby steps. So when you start setting goals, we got to get out of the habit of setting these wild and crazy goals, and instead start setting goals that are realistic and achievable. Some sample goals here on page 42. Everybody talks about being the #1 salesperson in the dealership. Have you ever thought about being the #1 salesperson in the region or the zone for your product? Do you even know how many cars it takes to be the #1 salesperson in the region? Probably not. How about the country? How about the world? If you can't see that, units. And some of these should be things that you do every single month. Units. Raise my current average 1 unit every 90 days. Raise my current average 1 unit every 90 days. We're at 10 cars now. That means 90 days from now, we need to be at 11. That means 90 days we'd be at 12. Another 90 days we'd be at 13. And 1 year later we'd be at 14. Now, assuming your gross didn't change or anything else, there's a 40% improvement. And all you did was sell 1 more car every 90 days. Is there anybody watching this? I don't care how long you've been doing it. You started yesterday or you started 17 years from yesterday. Is there anybody watching this that couldn't go from 10 to 11 in a 90-day period, couldn't sell 1 more car every 90 days? Of course you can. You can have a 40% improvement your first year. I guess if you were at 14, then you went to 15, 16, 17, and 18 the next year. From the beginning, now you've got about an 80% improvement. And if you did that 1 more year, 18 to 19 to 20 to 21 to 22, well, there's your 100% improvement, taking it slow and easy baby step method. Now, that's not counting if you made some extra gross on each one of these cars. And we'll get into that too. Under gross, how about raising your current average commission per unit? What? What would be a good goal there? $100, $1,000? Your current commission per unit, if you're selling 10 cars, making $2,500 a month, that means you're making about $250 a car. What if you raised that by $20 a unit? If you did that every 90 days, could you do that? That means you got to raise the gross probably $80 per unit. You got 90 days to do it. $20 a unit, is that worth doing? I don't know. If you sell 10 cars, $20 a unit's another $200 a month times 12 months. That's another $2,400 a year you could make if you just raise your commission per unit $120 one time. What if you did that 4 times a year? I think my math is right. If I raised it again 90 days from now and did another 20, I think I'd get another 2,400, wouldn't I? Then I got another 20. I think I get another 2,400. I think I can raise my gross my income by about $10,000 just by raising the gross 20 bucks. Imagine if you sold a car here and there and raised the gross a little bit. This is too easy to double your income. At the very beginning, some of you may have thought that as a highball. I hope you're starting to realize how realistic it really can be. There's plenty of other goals on there, and you want to take a look at the list, and there's many other things that you could do. I just put some thought starters down there. You need goals each month. Number 6, when we talk about goal setting on page 43, there's also 2 key words in goal setting. Number 6, realistic and achievable. Realistic and achievable. If I'd have said go from 10 to 30 next month, is that realistic? No, so there's no point in setting that kind of goal. Is that achievable? Probably not. The only way that I know you can even double your sales in a single month without developing skills is to work 2 shifts. If you work 1 shift, sell 10 cars, work 2 shifts, you ought to be able to sell 20 cars, talking to twice as many people. So you could double it overnight, but that's not the preferred method. What happens when you do you're down here and you're having your bad month and you're selling your 8 cars or 6 cars, whatever it is, and you work real long and real hard. You work your 2 shifts plus. Well, you sell 20 cars. Problem is now you're real tired, so now you got to rest. Good news is you got some carryover, still making some money from what you did last month. So you rest, and now you're back down here at 6. Now you're broke again, but you're rested, so now you got to work long and hard again. So then you're back up into the 14 or 18, 17, whatever it is, and then you rest, and then up at the top, and then you rest. Long, hard work creates the wrong kind of pattern in your career. This gets real frustrating. This will wear you out. Again, don't worry about having great months. Just take out these bad months. Just get rid of these and start raising your average from the bottom up. A good goal would be to never sell anything less than your average. If your average is 12, why would you have an 11-car month? Your average is 12. All you have to do is apply yourself, figure out what you need to do. What kind of goals do you need? Number 7. A lot of people don't think about these. We have 2 types of goals or 2 kinds of goals. We have results goals, and these are the things that you want. I want to sell 15 cars. That's a result. I want to make $4,000. That's a result. Then you need activity goals to get you the result that you want, to get you the things you need to do. How am I going to get from here to here? Well, my average was 12. My average over here was $3,500. How will I get from 12 to 15? Well, I'll do a better job of follow-up. Oh, now that's an activity goal. I'll talk to more people. That's an activity goal. I'll give more presentations. I'll get my presentations up to 65% instead of 40%. Those are activity goals. If you follow the activities, will you get your money? Of course. You want to learn to manage not your results, but learn to manage what you do each day. You tie both in together. The types of goals, number 8 here, this is real simple. Just write short, medium, and long in those 3 blanks. Short, medium, and long. Now, short-term goals take you out about 90 days. They're the ones that we normally focus on. This business, if this last page was our sales and income for the month, and it said Bob and Bill and Sue and Betty and Jim and John, at the end of the month, every month in this business, what happens? We wipe the slate clean and we start over. You go from hero to zero in a turn of a page up here. We've been brought up with short-term goals. That's the only kind of goals we have in the car business. I doubt that you have anything past a 90-day goal unless you got a trip to Hawaii for the next 90 days, whoever sells the most cars. There may be, but it's not even likely that there's a serious 1-year goal in the dealership from January to December. Whoever sells 300 cars gets $2,000, $5,000, whatever it is. There's probably not even that long-term goal. There's a plaque on the wall, but the plaque may not be enough to keep our attention on track for that full 12 months. So we want some medium goals and we want some long-term goals. Let's take a typical 10-car person here for a minute. 10-car person. Now, let's look at 1 year from now. Where would you like to be if you're averaging? Remember, everything is current average now. We switched over from how many cars we sold last month to our current average. And that's the problem. 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we sold 16 cars. The month before last, we sold 8 cars, and last month we sold 22 cars. In the past, which of these numbers did you use to set your future goals with? I think you used this one, and you set one higher than that one. Well, 16 and 22 is 38, and 8 is 16. That's 46. We're about a 15-car a month person. But we would probably set a 25-car goal. Realistic, 15 to 25, unrealistic. So we want to quit using just our last month's number to set a goal, and we want to start using this current average. So let's assume our current average is 10. That's why we go through all that trouble tracking it in the planner. Where would you like to be a year from now if you're a 10-car person? What's realistic? What's achievable? What's worthwhile? In class, most people say, well, I'd like to be at 14, 15, 16, something like that. Is that realistic? Let's say 14 cars, 15 cars. So if you'd like to be at 15 a year from now, that's our first goal. That's a long-term goal. Now let's set some medium goals. Where would you need to be 6 months from now? A medium goal to be on track for your long-term goal from 10 to 15. Basic math, half of that, 12 and a half. Let's set a short-term goal. Where do you need to be 90 days from now? So that's 6 months. Where do you need to be 90 days from now to be on track from 10 to 12 and a half? Cut that in half, about 11 and a quarter. Where do you need to be in another short-term goal 30 days from now? Another short-term goal. Where do you need to be on track to reach your long-term goal a year from now? Give or take about 10.6. Anybody watching this can't get from 10 to 10.6 in 30 days if you applied yourself? I think not. This is too easy. So we want to always start with a long-term goal and then work it backwards. Almost all of us instead start with a short-term goal. That's backwards. Always start out here and work it backwards. Now, in fact, let's take this as an example. I keep talking about doubling your income. Let's take an average 10-car person. In fact, we had a class not too long ago, a 3-day class, and I'll use the guy in there for an example. I said, who sells about 10 cars? Guy raised his hand, said, I'm about a 10-car person. I said, if you're selling 10 cars, average gross, I'm guessing you make about $250 a car, $2,500 a month. He said, yeah, and that's about 30 grand a year. So we started with the $30,000. I said, now, let's start with a long-term goal. Let's say that in the last 12 months you made 30 grand. What would you like to make in the next 12 months? Let's start up here where the results go. And this fellow said 36,000. Is that realistic? Should be. Is it achievable? Yeah, with effort. Is it worthwhile? Absolutely. That's a 20% improvement. If you could do that every year, you'd be rich before long. So 36,000. Now let's look at the things that we do to earn money. We've got our numbers of units. We know our commission per unit. To make 30,000 a year, that comes out to $250 a car. 10 cars, $2,500 a month, times 12, 30,000. Most people lease cars, and in most cases, we make a little more on a lease than we do a purchase. And I asked him, do you lease any cars? He said, yeah. I said, how much higher is a voucher on a lease than a purchase? He said, about $100. I said, about repeat and referral business. We talked about them on the board before. Is your voucher higher on them? He says, yeah, it's probably at least $100 higher. Okay, now let's look at these areas that make us money, and let's set some long-term goals. Let's set some one-year goals for this. 10 cars. He said 15 is realistic. Here he said in gross per unit, commission per unit, he said, I think I can make an extra $50 a unit. I said, how would you do that? He said, well, I have to raise the gross out on the lot. How much would you have to raise it? He said, well, we get paid 25% commission, so I got to make an extra $200 a car. I said, is that realistic? He said, yeah, I think I can do that. So to go from $250 to $300. I said, how many leases are you doing? He said, maybe one a month. I said, how many would you like to do 12 months from now? He said, maybe 3. That'd be good. Repeat referrals worked out about the same. What would you like to do a year from now? He said, probably 3. Now, are all of these one-year goals realistic? Anything on there you'd like me to change? Doesn't matter because I can't hear you. But in class, everybody says, no, these are fine. So I'm assuming they're okay with you guys too. Most of us would probably do the opposite. We'd like to raise these. It's okay to want to do more, but let's promise to do our 15. Now, if these are realistic, let's see how much extra money the salesperson gets if he actually does what he said he could do. If he sells 5 more cars at $250 a car, how much extra money will that be in his paycheck each month? 2 and 5 is 10, looks like about $12.50. If he raises his commission per unit $50 a car, and he's going to deliver 15 cars a month, 50 times 15 is another $750. And then 2 more leases and 2 more repeat and referrals at $100 apiece, so that's 4 more total at $100. It's another $400, so looks like we got about $2,400 in extra money that this salesperson will earn next year if he reaches these 4 goals. Now, did that get him to his long-term goal? Let's see. Multiply that times 12. You got somewhere just under 30,000, about 29,000. Now let's see if we add that to his previous earnings. Did he hit his goal? Nope. He didn't hit his 30 grand. He went past it. So we're going to have to cut some things somewhere. He didn't mean to make quite that much money. See how easy it is to double your income? It doesn't require that you double your sales. It doesn't require that you double your gross. It doesn't require that you double anything. It just requires that you focus on the areas that will make you the most money. A lot of ways to do this. You'd be amazed, and part of your homework tonight is to sit down and figure out what you could do. There's a sheet in your workbook that's almost identical to what I just did here. You need to sit down and figure what you could do with very small improvements in your sales. This is a 20% improvement, but look at the effect a 20% improvement has. $750 a month is give or take about $9,000 or $10,000 a year for a 20% improvement and holding more gross. We went here with a 50% improvement, got us a, gosh, that's a $15,000 improvement in our paycheck. That seems good. So we want to take it step by step. Common question I get, number 9 there, is how often should you set goals? Well, your lifetime career goals, we talked about long term, we stopped at a year. If you can think until you're 65, 70, ready to retire, or if you'd like to retire at 40, if you can think that far ahead, that's great. But you want to make sure that you have one-year goals. You use your last 90 days. If you'll look back 90 days, if you look that direction 90 days, and you'll look forward 1 year, you got it made. You can completely control your income. Here's where you are, here's where you'd like to be. And with good, effective selling skills and developing your skills and a good plan, you can get anywhere you want to be. So you want to constantly review your goals and set goals. I would suggest that you set a new 1-year goal every 90 days. Just like the quarters in a year, January, February, March. Every March you ought to set a goal for the following March. April, May, June, comes to June, you need to set a goal for the following June. You always want to be working a year ahead of time, not January to December like most people do. That's an error. What happens is January to December, comes December, I have no goal for January, and it's tomorrow morning. So you want to make sure you don't do that. You want a constant, ongoing goal. You're always working 1 year into the future. You want to review your goals even more often than that. You want to review your goals every day if you can. And we'll talk more about that. Number 10, the biggest problems most people face setting and reaching goals. Everybody wants to be a better salesperson, make more money. I can't imagine anybody not wanting to. I think everybody has good intentions, and almost everybody thinks they have goals. Number 1, most salespeople don't track, so they don't know exactly how many cars they sell, units they sell, average commission per unit. They don't have the information they need to set a goal. We fixed that. You got your planner. You're going to start gathering that information on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And when it's time to set a goal, you'll know exactly where you are. Number 2, another big problem, most salespeople's egos get in the way and they set goals that are way too high. We just can't stop ourselves from blurting out a goal that's higher than our abilities. If you get used to taking baby steps, I don't care if you just sold 1 more car per year than you're selling now. If you're selling 10 cars now, 10 years from now, you would have doubled your sales. And if you don't sell even 1 more car a year than you're selling now, 10 years from now, you're still stuck at 10. So you might consider 1 car a year, that's a silly baby step. But if you take it, at least 10 years from now, you've doubled your income. Number 3, most people who set goals the right way never write out a plan. Even the 10% who almost did it right we had up there on the board, they forgot to plan. It's easy to get from 10 to 12. That's an easy goal. It's easy to set. But how are you going to get there? You have to write out a step-by-step plan. And remember those open-ended questions? Who, what, when, where, why, how, and which? When you're talking about your plan, I'm going to get from 12 to 15. How? Well, I'm going to work harder. What area? Well, I'm going to work on follow-up. When will you start? Well, I'm going to start next Thursday. Where will you get the information? What will you do first? How? And it's a step-by-step process. You keep asking these who, what, when, where, why, how questions, and these are in your workbook in case you forget them. You keep asking those questions until you have no unanswered questions about your goal. And when you can't ask any more questions, then you've got a good step-by-step plan that'll get you to where you'd like to be. Take it step by step. Number 4, one of the other problems, most of the time there's no commitment to reach the goal. Most of the time there's no commitment. We say we're gonna, and I take that back. Most of the time there probably is a commitment, but we take commitment so lightly we hardly ever get there. We say I'm gonna do it, but we really don't. This time you need to make a commitment to your commitment so that you actually do it. The effects of goal setting on your career, if you just, that sheet that I filled out here on that 10-card guy, you need to fill that out on yourself. On page 44, this is your homework after this tape set. Sit down and figure out, number one, how much money did you earn last year? Number two, based on what you earned, what would the realistic goals be? 30,000, 36,000. That's exactly what we did on the board. And then, number three, look at the ripple effect of goal setting when you make improvements in all of the areas. And those are down there below. Units, average commission per unit, leases. And everybody says, what's CPU? It's commission per unit. Repeat referral, average commission per unit. Another thing you need to factor in, if you went from 12 to 15 or from 8 to 10, would you be in the next bonus level at work? If 8 to 10 gets you another bonus or gets you a $100 bonus, that's an extra $1,200 a year. Don't forget to figure that stuff in. It all matters. There's some steps to setting goals that, again, most people skip, so let's cover those quickly on page 45. I'm going to suggest that you read and reread this section in your workbook. I'm going to suggest that you play and replay this tape set again and again and again. A lot of information here. There's a lot of words in your workbook that I don't say here on tape. You need to go back and read these. Again, this is a book with a few blanks in it. The steps to becoming a goal setter on page 45. The first thing you have to do, and this is part of your homework in your homework book, A, think about what you want. Just think about what you want. One of the most important things to becoming more successful is to have a good imagination. And psychologists tell us that we've pretty much lost our imagination. They said that, when we're 4 or 5 years old, we can do anything. Our mind, we can fly. You can fly to the moon. You can drive a spaceship. You can race cars. You can do whatever you want when you're a little kid. But then as we get older, we try things. They don't work. People say you can't do this. I honestly used to think you could fly when I was 4 or 5 years old. So I went out the barn and jumped off one time. You cannot fly. If it hadn't been for that chicken, I'd have probably hurt myself. So we want to make sure that we still have that imagination. They tell us when we're 7 or 8 years old that we've lost almost all of our imagination because people say, you can't do this, you can't do that, don't cross the road, don't even try that, that's not going to work. Psychologists tell us that when we're 30 years old, our imagination narrows and narrows and narrows, and by the time we're 30, we're in such a narrow rut. Zig Ziglar would call this hardening of the attitudes. We're in such a narrow rut that most of us will never get out of it. 96% will never change past 30. We can change, but you need good, clear goals to pull you out of that rut. And I don't care if it's a good rut. A rut's a rut. It started out as a groove, turned into a rut. B, you want to prioritize the things on your list. Tonight your homework is to just make a list of everything you'd like to have. Now, we're going to take away realistic and achievable from our thinking tonight when we do this. I don't care if it's realistic or achievable or not. If you want something, write it down. A guy in a 3-day class the other day, we were going over the list the next day, and I said, what was the most ridiculous thing on your list? The guy said, I want a battleship. That's kind of ridiculous. Big one or little one? He said, no, a big one. I said, well, why is that ridiculous? He said, I don't have a place to park it. Lady in class one time said, I'd like to get married. Another guy one time said, I'd like to have an F-4 Phantom. People said, I'd like to own an island. Let your imagination wander. The more your imagination wanders, the more things that are going to hit the list. It's all right what's on there. B, that's where we start setting goals. We start prioritizing. And a prioritize, 1, 2, or 3. 1 is a priority. Yeah, that's a 1. That's a 1. This is a 2. That's a 3. This doesn't matter. And I guess this is a 2. So first thing we do is make a list. We don't worry about prioritizing it. And then you go back and prioritize your list. Number C, then you put a date on when you're going to reach the ones, when you'll make a commitment to reach the ones. The one, let's say that this one was to get from 10 to 15 cars. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it by this date, 1 year from now. Okay, so we put a date on that one. This one was to make $4 grand. I'm going to do that this month. And then the 2s, you can go back and date them if you want. The nice thing about doing this, when I first read one of my first books on goal setting, it said do this little example. It said just grab some sheets of paper, make a list of everything you'd like to have. I did that, and a few years later I was moving. I looked back at my little list. I had 253 things on my list. Now I had my ones and I had my dates, but what I really noticed, and it really made an impact on me, the things that I had considered 3s and most of the 2s, I had hit most of the 2s and I'd even picked up a lot of the 3s. You'll be amazed what you can do, what your mind does for you when you have good, clear goals. You know that old saying that your mind is, we only use like 20% of our mind or our brain? I think they've decided that we don't use 1 or 2% of it. And I just read something not too long ago, if you know, they're trying to build computers that'll do what we can do. And this article said that if you had a computer the size of the state of Texas, and that's pretty big, if it was 100 stories tall, that computer still couldn't do things the mind of a 7-year-old child can do. You got this supercomputer up here, and it'll do whatever you want it to do for you. And all you have to do is program it correctly. I want to get from here to here. I will earn $4,000 this month. All you have to do is tell it what you want to do, and it'll go out and get the money for you, or get the success for you, or get whatever you want. D down here, you need to turn the ones into results goals, and you have to be very clear. Number D, be very clear. No vague things. No, I want to make a lot of money. I'd like to sell more cars. Those are vague responses. There's nothing clear, nothing specific. E, you need to make a commitment. Make a commitment. And at the end of that, it says with no options for failure. Highlight, underline, or circle that. Make a commitment with no options for failure. Remember the options we throw in normally? I'm going to get from 10 to 15 cars, you know, unless something happens. I'm going to make $4,000 this month, you know, unless something out of my control happens. Well, that means almost anything could happen and you're off the hook. Don't set a goal that you're not willing to go to the trouble to reach. Don't set way out in the pie in the sky kind of goals. Set realistic and achievable goals. Write yourself a good plan. G, or F rather, write out a plan. And here's where you use those who, what, when, where, why, how, and which questions. Write a plan. G, and this is important too. When you get your 15 cars, that's significant. It has a great long-term impact on your career, but it's not something tangible that you can actually feel that day. How about when I get to 15 cars, I'm going to buy me a new boat? How about when I get to 15 cars, I'm going to take a 3-day trip? Do something tangible that you can see. If I hit my $4,000 this month, I'm going to buy myself a new CD. If you only average $2,000 a month, it might be a CD player. If you normally make $3,800 a month, it might only be a CD tape. H, review your goals. You need to review these things on a daily basis. I got lucky when I became a goal setter. I used to be a 3-pack a day smoker, and I wrote all of my goals on the back of a business card and I stuck them in the cellophane. If you smoke 3 packs a day and you put your goals there on the cellophane and you read them every time you pulled out your cigarette pack, how many times a day would you get to read your goals? 20 times 3, about 60. Fortunately, one of my goals was quit smoking, and I read that. Finally, I don't smoke anymore. I found out that you can do anything you want to do with goal setting. And this success stuff is a piece of cake if you'll take it step by step. I, the last one there on the page, may be one of the most important. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. I can't tell you how many times I've had an earning goal of $10,000. And on the 25th of the month, I got $3,800 made. Should I change my goal? Not if it was realistic. Not if I've been working my plan. Now, if we had a hurricane and it took away all the cars and everything was damaged and there was nothing to sell and nobody left in town to sell them to, then I might change it. But my goal was realistic. I can't tell you how many times the last day of the month I ended up with $13,000 or 14 or whatever it was. Keep the faith. This is a numbers business. You see the numbers from your monthly planning guide. If you track everything, everything works out into an average. And if you do what you're supposed to do, the numbers will take care of you. You just have to keep the faith. You got to go out there with that smile on your face and talk to every person with a great attitude, give them a full presentation, demonstration, do all the things you're supposed to do. Some examples of results goals and activity goals. Page 46 is an example of your results goal. And you need to review this tonight. And there's a quiz on the math tomorrow. So review it, make sure you understand the math. When you talk about raising your current average, you have a little test on that. There's a sample activity goal on page 47. You need to review this after the class as well. I'm going to give you one extra goal that's not in your workbook. It's not in your homework book. Write out a business plan. Write out a business plan. Start in the long term. Where would you like to be 5 years from now? These don't have to be clear, specific goals, but they need to be general. Where would you like to be in sales 5 years from now? We need to become more specific. Where would you like to be exactly 1 year from now? How do you see your business as a salesperson in the car business progressing for the next 1 year, 5 years. And then you start breaking this down into those bite-sized pieces goals we talked about. Well, to get to here, I need to be here, and I have to start here, and right now I'm here. And then you work your plan step by step. But write out a business plan. You are literally in business for yourself. You didn't have to come up with the money to buy the cars. You didn't have to buy the building. You don't have to turn the lights on. All you have to do is show up. You have as many opportunities a day as you'd like to sell your product, make a commission, sell a vehicle, and until you have a business plan, you may not get it done. This is very important to your long-term success. Goal setting is probably the most important thing that you'll ever do in your lifetime, much less as a salesperson in the car business. I can't stress enough, they need to be realistic, they need to be achievable. You have to start with accurate figures. That's why those current averages are so important. That's why that monthly planning guide, collecting that information on a weekly summary, that weekly summary on your daily and weekly page there, your monthly summary where you do all those extra numbers, that gives you the information to set a good, clear, realistic, and specific goal. Now, when we come back after this, we're going to start getting into some selling skills. The next tape series, we're going to get into the fundamentals of selling. We're going to just share some of the things I've learned about selling. We're also going to talk about some statistics, what our customers have told us they like and dislike about the car business and how they're treated. And all we got to do is treat them the way they'd like to be treated. Do your homework. Write down the 3 most important things you got after class. You got your homework tonight on goal setting. Make a list. Prioritize your list, and then write a date on the ones. And I'll see you on the next tape. Have a great day.
This concludes this segment. Stay tuned for some important information.